Exactly 2 minutes.
Okay. So, real quick, guys, if you have any missing assignments, you can still upload those into Schoology. It'll notify me when Schoology sees them. I didn't go on there at all this weekend, so if you uploaded late stuff, I wasn't on there checking things this weekend. So this is the answer key for like both the last couple days. So our test review, we're reviewing more today because we'll be testing them tomorrow. Hopefully the jogging your memory or getting you guys going back again on this will be helpful today. That's kind of all we need to do. Now, if you're missing a bunch of assignments or your grade is kind of in distress, you may be required to come on Friday to not come, but log in for virtual Fridays. Now, if you're an absolute, like, you're on life support in this class, you might have to actually come in, but that's very, very few students that were asking that of. It's probably not any of you guys. But, so if you have missing work or if your grade's in like kind of the D or F range, I probably will ask you guys to log on virtually on Friday. Now, if you're at the C range or B range and you're like, that's not good enough for me, I need to meet with you, I can make time for you on Friday. It's just I'm requiring people who have to come in if they're really doing poorly or missing a lot of work. So, so the question was about when that missing work has to be in by. I need to be able to tell you by Thursday. So missing work, I probably shoot for Wednesday, trying to get that uploaded or turned in to me. Okay? So we're going to go through the few questions you guys had listed here. And we're going to go through the different methods then today that we've been talking about over the past few weeks in here. So I'm going to go through 27, 31, 33, and then 35. And like I said, we're going to do more examples of all types of problems here today. So just know that, again, I'm not teaching you guys anything new today. I'll just review with you. So I'm going to flip the screen over. All right, so let's start with 27.
You do your hair darker?
We did.
You can tell.
Yeah, I came back and Mr. Don, he was, what did you do? Like he was like trying to like say something, but he didn't quite know. Like I was like, it's darker. It's like more, it's just kind of more natural. But so we're gonna complete this square. And when we complete the square, the first step is I want an x squared plus bx alone. Now it's really confusing that they have the b's in this problem. So if you prefer to switch it, I'm fine with that.
6b.
Yeah, that's confusing because we're talking about b's. So we want to get this alone. Then our next step is b divided by 2 squared gets added to each side. So I have to kind of rearrange things here. So I'm going to move the 6x over and move the 4 over to the other side. So move this 4 over. I'm going to leave a little space on this one because this is the one where I end up putting something into the problem. So this is the way we want to start for completing the square. So in this case, we want to do b divided by 2 squared, and our b is negative 6. I want to divide it by 2 and square it. So that's going to be 9. That's going to get added to each side of the equal sign. I'm going to add 9 here, but if I do it there, I have to do it on this side as well. I'm adding 9 to each side. So over here, I'm left with 5. But this side should be factorable because I completed the square. And it's factorable. It's always going to be the same thing twice. It's x times x. I want to multiply to get 9, but add to get negative 6. So it's going to be a negative 3 and a negative 3. So it's x minus 3 is a quantity squared equals 5. Now I need to solve it by taking the square root. Now square root of 5 is not a nice number. So I'm just going to write it as plus or minus the square root of 5. And then finally I'm just going to move that 3 over. So it's going to be 3 plus or minus the square root of 5. So I can't combine those because they're not like terms. Square root of 5 is not a like term with a 3. All right, and then we'll do the next few questions you guys have is on quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is this one. So you're going to want to know this formula. Like I said, there's lots of songs out there. If you want to go online on YouTube, ask for a quadratic formula song, you'll find lots of them. Because it's something that teachers force their students to memorize. So 31. Okay. So figuring out A, B, and C first of all is going to be helpful in order to put that all in to use our formula. So that it's already set equal to 0. So my A is just 1, B is 2, and C is 7. It's just the coefficients in the front. So I'm doing x equals the opposite of b. So it looks like it's 2, so that means negative 2, plus or minus the square root, b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. Now inside the root, I'm going to do all that work. So I'm going to do 2 squared is 4. Negative 4 times 1 times 7 is a negative 28, all over 2. So negative 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 24, all over 2. So I have this negative number that I have to deal with. The negative square root, I know I'm going to have I involved. I can pull the I out to get rid of that negative. So I, and then square root of 24. Now, square root of 24 can be simplified. So if your calculator doesn't simplify things for you, get a new calculator. No, just kidding. I mean, borrow someone's whose does. Or you can do it this way. I break up as 4 times 6. This would be 2 root 3, or 2 root 6, sorry. That's what I'm going to put in place of the square root of 24. Negative 2 plus or minus, we need the I though on the outside. So 2I squared to 6 all over 2. Now, had you stopped here, I would totally understand. You just can go one step further. Since all of these terms, or both of these terms can be divided by 2, we really like to simplify that if we can. Each of these can be divided by 2, so I'm going to make it negative 1 plus or minus 1I, or just I squared to 6. So we're just simplifying those coefficients in the front. So we're dividing them each by 2. So this is the best answer. If you got to this point, you really only lost like 1 point if this was like a 4 or 5, 6 point problem. You're not really missing much. All right, 33, another quadratic formula problem. All right, this case, a is actually a negative 1. That's the coefficient in front of the x squared. B is 5 and c is 9. Opposite of b, plus or minus the square root, b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. So So -5 plus or minus the square root. This is 25 minus 36, 4 times 9, all over -2. 25 minus 36 is a -11. So that, again, that -11, I have to pull that I out. Now, you could leave it this way. I don't believe your book does. I think it changes the sign. The two negatives, they just made it positive. So they might have written it this way, but I'm fine with that first one. And then finally, 35. Again, quadratic formula. Again, they use something other than x. I'm going to just change it back to x. That's it. Yeah. So our A, B, and C again. Opposite of B, plus or minus the square root, B squared minus 4 times A times C, all over 2 times A. So we get, this is 49, and then minus, oh no, this becomes plus 24, all over 6. Oh, no, it's okay. And then we get 73 into there, I think. And then square root of 73 cannot be simplified. It's a prime number. Nothing goes into 73, so we just stop here. We don't want to, you can't actually add -7 and 70 square root of 73 together unless you change that to a decimal. We don't want to do all that, so we'd stop right there. Okay. So what we're going to do today is kind of do a big overview on everything that we should have learned. So we're going to do a chart. Now, this is our second chart of the chapter. We did a chart for factoring as well. So you actually might want that factoring chart out or handy. I get used to wearing a mask. I don't think I drank water all day. I just realized. So then I'm thirsty, and then realized we're wearing a mask and forget about my water intake.
I can't believe I literally did this with the new It's a. It's on there.
Okay, sorry, I get it a little here.
I don't know. I can cross out something else. Yes. We just made this a lot easier on ourselves. Now I just like doing my things.
Yes.
Yeah. We're just that one. Did.
All right, so again, this chart looks strangely like the factoring one, but It just happens to be the same size, but otherwise they do connect though, because we will mention factoring on this sheet, because this is talking about all the different ways we can solve quadratics. Now, when I talk about a quadratic, again, what I'm talking about is an equation that has an x squared as the highest power on any variable. So this is kind of our standard form of our quadratic. And when we're solving, reminder, we're looking for the zeros of the function. So we're looking for the x-intercepts. So we're trying to find those solutions. And so I'm going to go through the different methods. And we've really learned 5. Actually, now that I'm worried that we actually, oh no, we're okay. I think we have 5. Yeah. 5 different types. All right, let's work our way backwards, because we just talked about quadratic formula, and so maybe that one is the one we were just talking about for our most recent, like the last 3 questions you guys had. So the method was the quadratic formula. I should write down what section this one was in. I think that was 9-4, or not 9-4, 6-4. Just double check. Yeah, 6-4. So if you're looking back at your notes, section 6-4 is the quadratic formula. Now, this one is kind of one of the best ones because it works for any type of problem. However, it's the big long formula, the one where you can sing a song to go with it. Opposite b plus or minus squared root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Yeah.
She did that last year too.
It's a b squared minus 4ac. Sorry, I can only write it so small. Oh. So you want to memorize this one?
Are you gonna do it like last year, like we write it and then you check to see if it's...
Yeah, so yeah, good question. So typically when I have you guys memorize formulas, I just have you write it down, and then I actually probably will swap out the sheet that has the formula on it with you and just give you points for knowing it. And if you don't know it, then at least you have the right formula in front of you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
This one always gets me.
okay. Sing the song. All right, so okay, so we'll do an example, write steps here as we go. So it must equal 0, first of all. That's probably the main thing about this one. It must equal 0. And I'm going to kind of use 2 boxes here because I can't write that tiny without you guys asking me 18 times what I wrote. So we'll just write it out here. So if I like 0 equals so it must equal 0. So I already have it equaling 0 to save us a little bit of time. I like to list A, B, and C. That way I know, and then also that helps me to grade your test better so that I know you knew what A, B, and C you're talking about. So let's say you wrote down the wrong B. If you use that throughout the problem, if I know what B you were using, it helps me a little bit to give you some partial credit. So we're going to list A, B, and C. So A is 1, B is 15, C is 56 in this case. So we have to put those all into the formula, then we have to simplify. You simplify underneath the root first. So we're going to do inside underneath the root first. I'm going to run out of space here. The whole backside is blank, so if you can't write small, you can always flip it over. So we're gonna simplify underneath the square root first. I'm gonna do 15 squared. And then 4 times 56, and I'm gonna subtract those two. Squared is 225. Yeah. And then 4 times 56 is 224, I think. Wow. I only knew that because I knew what the answer is supposed to be.
Oh.
Well, I can do that. I mean, do it. But.
She knows her mental math.
I like multiplying in my head, but a lot of times I make like stupid errors. So not the most accurate all the time.
6 times 3, go.
What's that?
I said 6 times 3, go.
It's not saying she.
I like no. So square root of 1 is how much? Square root of 1?
1.
1. So once I get to the bottom, then I have to remember, now I'm going to do both positive and negative versions. So our like kind of our last step is remember positive and negative. Don't forget about I, and then also simplifying as much as possible. Much as possible. So if you need to include I, this one doesn't have an I because it's not a negative number. But watch out for that. So in this case, I'm going to do negative 15 plus 1, so negative 14 divided by 2. And also negative 15 minus 1, so negative 16 divided by 2. So we get a negative 7 and a negative 8 is our two answers. So that one's kind of a good one because we just went through a bunch of quadratic formula ones that were not very nice like that don't work out to be nice answers. So know that they can work out to be very nice numbers, but also like the ones you guys asked about in our homework tonight, that's also a possibility. So quadratic formula works for any type of quadratic equation. Right, actually, yeah, you could really just know the quadratic formula. Yes.
They know.
Unless you like put in the directions. Solve using this.
So, but all the other things we use in here, like so these other methods, it's not like that's the only thing they're used for. We use all those other things for different things in math. So they're kind of they're a tool that we use here. They can use them other places. So you still have to know how to do the other things. So that's why we're testing on all of them.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. No, it's all right. So, the next one, let's talk about, I might do graphing just because I know I can put the example on the back. So let's go to graphing next. And that was section 6.1, 6-1. And this is the one I'm looking for the intercepts. I'm looking for it to see where it crosses the x-axis. So I guess maybe in here I might just write, so I guess we're looking for the x-intercepts. Oh, maybe your parabola. So like kind of writing either look like this or like this. And I'll write the steps, and then to actually graph it, I'm actually thinking maybe we'll flip to the back side just because I think graphing in that little square seems like a lesson in like fine motor skills or something that we don't want to do. And then I have little graph papers for you guys. Little one. Okay, so for graphing, saying the alphabet in Spanish. All right, so again, it has to equal 0. And list the A, B, and C. But then we want to find the vertex. And remember, the vertex is another one of our formulas. But the really good news is the vertex, the coordinates for the vertex, that formula, is in the quadratic formula. So if you didn't notice it already, the quadratic formula has negative b over 2 times a in it already. So if you memorize the quadratic formula, you're really memorizing. I think we're leaving one short. There's another one. That one's a little rough looking.
I'm sure Caitlin will be good. Hey, I don't need this anymore. I don't need this anymore. Lola, your calculator is broken.
It is.
It won't go off for tax error.
Really?
Yeah, you want
Yeah, do you want to?
I mean, I haven't used this calculator like all year, so.
Yeah.
Tina's pop in? Is that okay?
It'll just say.
What are you talking
She broke your calculator.
I don't know.
Lola just fixed it.
Yours. So silly. Okay, it actually was just saying syntax error though.
No.
Did you hit clear?
Yeah. You just did.
Did you do like the reset where you hit on and clear at the same time? Well, you just
Okay.
don't know how to use my calculator apparently.
All right, so we're going to do a graphing example on the back.
I have a double-sided graph.
Oh wow, do you want to go to star? Because I also
Oh, Kenzie.
You're not special.
All right.
The pencil like Can't do it.
The like is really.
You swoosh it.
Okay, so we're going to solve this by graphing.
No. Don't give me the answers.
Now, do I know if this graph is going to point up or down?
Yep.
Up, yep, because of what it tells me.
The one is positive.
Yeah, the A value equaling 1 being positive tells me the graph opens up. So knowing that going into it's really helpful to be able to figure out like what's going on in this graph. So now I want to find the vertex, so I might just list my A, B, and C. So x equals negative b over 2 times a. And again, if you didn't hear me say it, the negative b over 2 times a is in the front of the quadratic formula. So you look at the first term in the quadratic formula over the 2 times a, it's right there for you, and that's not a coincidence. So opposite of b, be positive 2 over 2 times a. So my x coordinate is a 1. But then I need to find the y coordinate. Remember, we substitute that value back in to find our y. So I'm going to put that back into our equation. So we get -9. So I have my vertex, and I'll tell you guys right now, we probably have to make a little bit larger table of values, just because I don't think it'll fit on if we just do 5, but. I'm going to put my vertex at 1, -9. And I know my graph is pointing up, so I'm fine with where the fact that we're going like this, so it kind of makes sense that our graph is a good, like, everything so it seems to fit just fine. Now I'm going to pick other points close to that x coordinate so that I can use that symmetry and make sure everything fits on my graph really nicely. So I'm going to pick numbers bigger and smaller than -1. So I'm going to go 0, 1, -2, -3.
Wait, -1?
Oh, I had this wrong. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for catching me. Yes, that would be really bad. That would have done damage.
You're welcome, class.
Stop. I was just about to say something.
He's like,
Okay.
get out of here.
Okay. So 0, -1. Thank you.
You're
2,
welcome.
3. Okay, that's better. Now again, I like 0. Putting 0 in is a really easy number to put in because it makes those first 2 values just 0. It means 0, -8. And then there's symmetry on either side of that vertex if I have that vertex in the right spot. Thank you for catching me.
Of course.
Oh my gosh.
What would we do without Abby, you guys?
She kind of has some late work in there now. It doesn't mean anything. Hey.
Just so you guys know, like, you run into me like 10 years from now, like, I have students come up to me, like, from former students that were like, I was really bad. And I'm like, I don't remember anything bad about, they had to be really, really bad for me to remember. Like, the kid who hit the other kid that had with the hole puncher, I remember him. But, like, like, but otherwise, I'm like, if Abby comes to me and is like, remember all those late assignments, I'll be like, what? Like,
Yeah, I do.
No, Abby will just be like, I'm the one that made fun of everyone. And then you'd be like,
Oh! Hey, and everyone made fun of Abby back.
you say Maddie back?
Yeah, I will.
All right,
Yeah.
so 9 - 6 - 8, I'm putting in 3. So this is 3 - 8, so -5. Same thing on this side. And then here. Now, this is looking good. Like, I'm headed towards that answer, but I'm not quite there yet. So I have to go further. So in this case, and I'll tell you guys, you shouldn't have to do this on the test at all, but I just picked this one. It worked out nicely, except for having to make the table a little bit further. So crazy, I'm going to have to go one step further.
No.
You'll be fine. 4.
Why? Why do we
Because
have to?
what are we trying to find, you guys?
The x-intercept.
The x-intercepts, and we haven't hit the x-axis yet.
When y is 0, then
So when we put this one in now,
Kenzie, this is all your fault.
it's 0.
there's our 0. So 4, 0. And then also -2, 0 because of symmetry.
There we go.
There we go.
Hi.
Oh, I missed this.
There we go. Sorry, there we go.
I know we are. And so is Miss Hoffman. And Miss Hoffman's the opposite of us. So Miss Hoffman has maroon tights on and a white.
Miss Wooler's wearing like purple. Everyone's in maroon today.
She might actually be talking. Because you guys really need to see her.
Who?
How do you know you
She's going to get her to like show her that we're all empty.
Oh.
right, so our two solutions are the 2x intercepts, okay?
Yes.
All right. So flipping back to the front side. You need me to flip back? I can't even. Okay. All right. The next type we learned was factoring, and that's our chart, the yellow, goldenrod, whatever color that is, chart. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now, the factoring, obviously I can't fit that chart into this chart. It'd be like double magnified small. So I'm going to tell you guys to see your chart to make sure you guys see that chart. This is from section 6.2. So if you were in person, your chart would be yellow. If you were not in person, your chart's whatever color you printed it on or whatever.
I think it's gold, actually.
So, for factoring, I do want to still include some of the steps, and I'm still going to do an example, but factoring, I'm not going to show all the different types on this one part. I'm going to probably do some practice problems with you guys for a little bit here. Either like whiteboards, you can use the back of the sheet just to practice some more. First of all, for factoring, it has to equal 0. If you're sensing a pattern here, the pattern will break soon, so just hang on to that. So it should equal 0. Sense a pattern, then ignore it. All right. Then, once you have it equals 0, look for a GCF. Now, that's one of the things I think a lot of you guys forget is that GCF factoring, which is actually easier than the other types of factoring, and then you skip that, and then the problem becomes really, really difficult, near impossible, because you've missed the GCF that there was one. And I'll show you guys an example with that. So then you can check the different type of factoring, and then you set each of the factors equal to 0. And solve. So I'll show you guys an example of this. And then, like I said, we'll do some whiteboard practice, or you can write on the back of your worksheet, just kind of depending on where you want practice.
In the green.
Yeah. Super happy.
All right. So using your chart, or just your brain, what type of factoring is this? This is actually GCF. I put this one on here because I wanted you guys to practice this, because I think this is probably the one you're the worst at noticing, although it's the easiest. So it's kind of, once we overcome that worst at noticing part of it, hopefully it's better. So, and some of you guys, when you guys did this for the homework, this is where I was kind of like, oh, I can't tell what you're up to because you either didn't show any work and you just had answers. I need to see that you factored. Really, on this whole test, I can't have you say, well, I got my answer a different way, because we're really practicing these different types of problems. Again, like Kinsey said, why don't we just use quadratic formula for everything? Because I'm trying to get you guys to learn these different processes. So what can be factored out of these two?
2x.
2x?
Oh, wait a minute.
She was kidding about the 2.
Okay, I put the
So we're going to divide a 2x out of each of them. We left with 2x and then minus 3. So again, I like this kind, like I think this is the easiest of them, but if you miss it, that problem looks like impossible to factor. You don't know what to do with it. Now we set each of these factors equal to 0 and solve. So x actually ends up being 0. That's probably the answer if you just like guessed maybe. You'd like kind of guess and check and figure that one out. The other one, we set that equal to 0 and solve. And so that's also 3/2. So if you would like to to just do practice problems on your sheet, you can. Otherwise, if you prefer whiteboards, you can do that, whatever you guys want to grab.
Can you grab me one, please? My legs are broken.
Do you care what color I'm reading that at?
Yeah.
What do you want to know?
Yeah, please.
We're gonna share this.
Okay.
Share. Who's sharing this?
Who was that?
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna practice solve by factoring. So this is your yellow chart you want out for this.
Folder.
Okay, don't forget the first step, it needs to equal 0 first. I want you guys to solve by factoring. Make it equal 0 first.
Whoa. You can't throw that at me.
And then determine what type of factoring we should be using. So looking at your sheet, if you need help, I'd be glad to kind of point you in the right direction. I'm gonna check before. Give me a little one.
That's
Right, yellow.
That's so silly, Maddie.
And then you want to solve it. So set each of them equal to 0. Perfect. Yeah, you're good. Yeah. Yes, good job. So move this over. Make it equal 0 first. Then you have to set each of them equal to 0. Only thing is they should both be negative. This could be negative. Oh, this could be wrong. Yeah. You're multiplying to get this, adding to get that. No. That's 6. No, just check factoring, not square roots.
Like that?
Yeah, that's it. So if you want to multiply, I think you need an 8, right? When you take 3. Okay, we're gonna talk about it. So if you guys are stuck, next time to solve, you have to set each of them equal to 0. But careful, you want this to be a negative 5, so you have to have the sign flipped.
Wait, I think I got it.
Yeah, then you just have to solve it, set each equal to 0. Yeah. So if this was a struggle for you, I might suggest putting this on your purple sheet as an example to like practice tonight or like look back over. So I'm going to move this 5x over. If you guys are really still struggling with this, you're welcome to come for AR. Okay, so that equals 0 now. Now the type of factoring on my columns, this would be like the second type. Because of the x squared, I know this has to be x times x. I want to multiply the negative 24, but add to negative 5. So I make my list. And then I want it to be a negative 5, so I have to flip these signs. And so -8 and +3 is what adds to give me a -5. But then I'm not done. I still need to solve this. So I have to set each of these equal to 0 and solve. So x ends up being 8 and -3. So we did one type of factoring on our purple sheet here today, and this is another type that showed up on our yellow sheet. And these sheets are for you guys to study. You won't get to use them on the test, but you have to, gotta be studying, and hopefully that this will kind of come back to you guys. But again, if you need to come in for AR tomorrow, you're welcome to. Okay, I'm gonna do another one like this. And you have room on the back of your purple sheet, hopefully still. You can put them on there if you want, like, to have the practice to look at. Okay, this one already equals 0 for you. So one less step to do. Yes, Speedy. Yeah, sometimes it helps to make a little chart of the numbers that multiply. Yep. Good work. Yes, go ahead. Yes, good job. And yeah, I do like to see those factors, yep. So I don't want just the answers, then once you've factored it, then solve it. Then each of those equal to 0. Now you see the solves, you're good. It's fun. So set this equal to 0 as an equation, and then this equals 0. So multiply to get this, and we get it. No, you're good. GCF is only if they all have something in common in this one. So you always should try to look for that first, but these have it. So yeah, good question. You should always check for the GCF first, but like the last two we've done haven't had it. Yeah, you're good. Yes. No, opposite sign, because the 18 is negative, so we want to add to get a -18 with those two. So if they were both negative, then it would make that. Yeah, and then that makes a +32. Yep, you got it.
Continue.
Yes, that way
Yes.
Okay, so guys, this kind, it has to start with x times x again, because there's nothing in front of that x squared. I want to multiply to get 32, but add to get -18. So it helps to list it. I saw you guys doing this, so like, I think that's it. But then in order to get those to be negative, that middle number to be negative, they both have to be negative. And the only thing that will add to give us a -18 is a -2 and a -16. But then when I multiply them, they give me a +32. And then I have to set each of these equal to 0 to solve. Oops, add 16. All right. That's factoring, that's another type. So we're gonna move on to a different type of column, or a different column, so they're a little bit tougher.
Yes, that is true. It looks like ramen.
Actually, oh, it's fine, we'll just do this one.
Jax.
Okay.
Hi, Jax.
Okay, guys, so this is a different column. So this has a number in front of x squared, so now this is that big X thing. Remember that? So if you forgot, we'll talk about it. So it's the third column on your yellow sheet. Yeah. Only thing you want this yeah. And then you use those to split that. Yep. Remember, this is that when we split the middle term up using two other factors. Yeah, this is the top. No, this is, it's asking you to solve by factoring them. So this is on the yellow sheet, on the third column.
Oh. Right. I got it. X down.
No, close. This doesn't add to give you, or this doesn't multiply to give you that. You can multiply to get this one, but add to get that one. Do the opposite. You're good. You just want to wait. We can talk about it. So if you're stuck, we can. Okay.
Might be stuck.
You're good. Good job.
Might be stuck.
You have the right numbers. So now you just need to separate this using those two. Why did you make that one negative?
Oh.
Oh, you did that. Okay. Do it. Okay. What you have right here is good. Now you just want to do.
Negative?
No. Yeah. Why is that? So now you're going to do grouping, where you group them into two parts.
Oh.
Okay. So we'll talk about it. You got it? Okay. Does anyone else want more time? You're good? Or do you want me to talk?
You should have.
Oh, wait a second.
Oh, no, easy.
Yeah, I'll just do all that. So those don't multiply to
Oh,
give
you
that.
multiply.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It's confusing, yeah.
That was a brain.
Yeah, good job. Okay, guys. So I'm gonna start talking through this one. If you're working on it, feel free to listen or kind of keep going here. But we're multiplying the first and last together. These two get multiplied, and that's 5x squared up here. On the bottom, it's a 6x, negative 6x. I want to multiply to get the top number, add to get the bottom. The only thing that multiplies to give me 5 is 5 and 1. So, which one do you want to go first?
Negative 1.
The 1? You say 1 or 5?
1.
5.
You have 5?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So I can check the other way if you want. It won't matter. But to multiply to get that, but then in order to add to get a negative here, these both need to be negative. So I'm going to use those to split this middle term up. So this replaces this. Those of you guys who did it the other way, I can write it over here. I don't have to do it that way?
No, I'm just being salty here.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's obviously a kid.
Obviously. All right, so you can pull out the 5x. I'm left with x minus 1. Out of these two, I want them to match. So I'm going to pull out a negative 1. And I'll be left with x minus 1. So again, these should always match if I'm doing this correctly. Now, if you did the opposite order, I think it'll be slightly different. So you'll get the same factors. So then I have 5x minus 1. Then I'm going to set each of these equal to 0 and solve. So we get x equals 1, and then also 1/5. Okay. Let's try another one with that x thing.
can't throw it.
That's awesome.
I have so much paper on my
That's
desk.
awesome. Is it good? Oh my God, please don't even do it. That's not like happening. Yeah. It's not funny.
She's nice too. She's nice too.
Okay, guys, try this one. 8:30.
He's rich.
So again, we're using the X thing for this one. And feel free to have me check your X before you get going too far on it, 'cause it's really frustrating to get that wrong, and then it's the same method you just used.
I'm gonna need you.
Need some assistance, lifeline.
Yes.
Yeah, yours are good. Ready to split the middle,
I put it up.
multiply.
Oh. I put it on mine.
So you were multiplying those together, so that's where you got the 6a squared.
Oh, I always thought there was a comma.
Yeah, no comma.
Okay, okay. No.
Why did you? So you don't change the first and last term. You just change those middle two. So you're kind of like, yeah, so don't, so careful. So it should start with 8x squared. I believe you're good. Let me just double check my answer for you. Yeah, you're good. Good job. Only thing is, it's, I think your one you solved, you flipped it. So when you move this over, should you move the 3 over, and then divide by 4. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. I mean, it's just a silly mistake, but yeah, good job. Good job, you got it. No, you do.
Oh, I do?
Yeah. Now, yeah, you got it. That's what we have. Now you're just like chapter, like just the first half, and then the second half separate. Okay, so like out of those two, you take out. Careful, spending. The top one, you're supposed to multiply the first and the last together. Yeah, you're good. And then now factor out those two. Yeah.
I put a little more of it, yeah, they got it.
24, so.
I put them in the folder. Yeah. That is what
So it's a 6 and 4, but one of them negative. Oh, so just put this in parentheses and mark it. And then now you're gonna set each of those.
You wiped out my.
You got
Oh,
it.
your $10 sweatshirt.
Your $10 ripped jeans.
I
You're
got
gonna get attacked by
this
this
one,
That's good.
but this I don't know.
Oh, where did that come
Isn't this supposed to go there, no?
No,
That's how
you're lucky
This
you have
is
that.
supposed to go there.
No, okay. No, this has to get factored. So I'm gonna start going through this, because I think most of you guys who are, okay with it, are there. So I think you guys had, so 6 that, oh, it should be a -6 though, +4, because we want it to be a -2, right?
Yep.
Now, the order you put these in doesn't matter, you can flip those, but, I'm just trying to, I don't know, I was trying to do what made sense there. So that replaces the 2x. Okay. At this point, now I'm going to group each of these. So this becomes like 2 problems in itself. So these first 2, I'm going to try and take something out. I'm going to take out a 2x. Left with 4x minus 3. Out of these two, it actually already matches, so I'm just gonna take out a 1 as kind of a placeholder. And that's gonna be 4x minus 3. And so I have 4x minus 3, and then 2x plus 1. And then I can set each of those equal to 0 to solve. So I'll move the 3 over. So x is 3/4. And then x is also, yeah, and I think you just kind of, it was kind of coincidence though. A -1/2.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. We have one more type I just want to review with you guys for factoring. There was like 2 more types on our chart, but the one was just this grouping part, so we don't really do much solving with those. Let me show you guys the last one, which is one of the easier ones. If I say to solve by factoring, so make sure I don't pick one that's already on your sheet. Abby, let me see your sheet quick.
I mean, you could choose the one on the sheet.
Okay. So do you remember 2 terms? If this says to solve by factoring, it's 2 terms. This is their first column. It's called difference of squares. So since they're both perfect squares and they're subtraction, you should be able to use their perfect squares. Yeah, just hustle. Yeah, but then you just set it equal to 0. Yeah. And then set them equal to 0 and solve. Okay. Yeah. 1 plus 1 minus, yeah. Yep, and then you just have to set them equal to 0. Yeah, good job. Yes, good job.
Are we done with
Yeah. Oh, you're right. So, they're both perfect squares. So I know it has to be 5
This
times 5.
one,
And
I'm
9
doing.
times 2 is be 2 separate sets of parentheses. Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally right back.
Yeah, and those ones, if they're both perfect squares, they're that kind of easy to do. So this one, since you know it's 4 and it's perfect square, you take the square root of 4. Which is just 2. You don't have to
like really short?
in your front block. And then you set it equal to 0.
No.
One reason is I should
So the opposite sides, and they have to be perfect squares. Yeah. Yeah, when you guys are done, you can clean up boards. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Holy.
Alright. So we're gonna finish our last 2 columns here. And you guys can bring questions tomorrow. But again, if you're struggling, please stop into AR tomorrow. I'm fine with helping you guys if needed.
Your
Alright.
legs feel like jello from gym. Like when I get up at first, they just feel like kind of wobbly.
Alright. So we solved by square roots, which was section 6.3, I think. Or no. Square roots, where did we do that? Was that the one we went backwards? Don't need to do it. It was in section 5.9. This is the one back in one chapter back. So we want to isolate what's being squared. So this one could either look like so it could look something like this. So it either has just like an x squared or the parentheses squared. But I'm going to tell you guys to solve by square root on these. So it's not going to be like a, how do I decide any of these types? I'm going to tell you what method to use. This is one of the ones you don't have to have it equal 0, or it's not really even all that helpful to have it equal 0. So we want to isolate what's being squared. So by 3x squared plus 2 equals 110. I'm going to isolate what's being squared. So I'm going to get that x squared alone. And then I want to take the square root of each side, and I want to remember positive and negative, also I if needed. So the square root of 36 is 6, but it also could be a negative 6, so plus or minus 6. And then we'll do a completing the square problem and be done.
Whoa.
Does everyone have that example down or no? The last one up here, complete the square. So section 6.3, if you're trying to go back and look at notes. Again, I'll tell you that you need to use this method. This is the one where the formula is slightly different. It's b divided by 2 squared. So these last two columns, you don't need it to equal 0. This is one of the ones where you want to isolate x squared plus bx all alone. This is our one we're going to complete the square on. X squared plus 8x plus 20 equals 0. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of that 20. I want to move that 20 over to the other side. And I'm going to leave a little space by the 8x. So now we're going to add b divided by 2 squared to each side. So my 8 is my b. I'm going to divide it by 2, that's 4. And I'm going to square it, that's 16. So I'm going to add 16 to each side. And if it helps, I might write it up here, just where I did that. 8 divided by 2 squared So 4 squared, so that's 16. That's what's being added to each side there. Now I'm ready to factor that left side, and since we chose the factor, it's always going to be a perfect square factor. So it's always going to be the quantity squared. So this is going to be x, and it's going to be x plus 4, because that multiplies to give me 16, but adds to give me 8. And this actually over here is also a negative 4, or is a negative 4. Now I'm ready to take the square root of each side. Again, don't forget plus or minus with the i's. So that x plus 4 equals the square root of negative 4. What's the square root of 4? 2. But negative 4 would be 2i. And then we just need the plus or minus in front of it. And then I'm just going to move that 4 over. Now those aren't like terms, so I can't put them together. So I'm just going to leave it this way. All right, questions there at all? So that's everything you learned over the past however many weeks now. So in a chart, so this is something for you guys to study. Again, I'm welcoming you, inviting you into AR tomorrow if needed. Bring questions before we start the test. Because there's 2 charts for you guys to study here. Our homework is listed online, a little bit better than I probably can list it here, so let me pull that up. It's out of the back of the book. Let me pull this up. Hi, sorry. Whoa.
I just saw my own.
Hey guys, real quick guys, the homework is listed here. It's page 889 and actually 890 as well. So if you guys remember in the back of the book, you have to go by the sections. So section 6.1, it's 11 and 12. So there's like a little section for 6.1. 6.2, there's another little section of problems. And I have them listed there, 6.3, 6.4. Use the method they tell you to. So whatever method it is they're saying to use that method. The only thing is on 6.4, just do quadratic formula. So it's listed there for you guys. It's also online. What's up? We always go look at Christmas leaves. Like out in the Cedar Grove house. And we always reading the box and operating finish telling them the box. Yeah, no, okay. I can add to that.
Is it not worth it? Weird, have to like, I'll do it. I'm like, maybe like 5 minutes later, it's like, yeah, that's it, it's like,
I mean, it wasn't like terrible.
just basic.
We're going to the same church.
I guess we should add this to the to-do list. What I have to do.
Oh, you're meeting for it.
I just show you. Why did I think of you before?
You did, Alexa.
No
I
problem.
have a stuff.
Look at my to-do list.
Nice.
This week was six.
Yeah, I don't know why Abby said it was bad.
It's just
It's just
because
Oh, sorry, stop the video.
To-do list.
Yeah.